Hi, my name's Monique Rhodes. You know, many of you will understand that I grew up in New Zealand. New Zealand's a wonderful place, and it's full of nature. And as I've traveled all over the world, I've often lived in places where there wasn't much nature. But now I live in the midst of the jungle in Costa Rica, and I absolutely love it. I look out my window, there's jungle everywhere. A little bit further down is the ocean. Now, there's something magical that happens when you step outside, and you may not always notice it right away, but slowly, subtly, something in your body begins to shift. Your jaw might soften, your breath might drop into your belly, your shoulders might unhook themselves from your ears. A little quiet might find its way in. And even if life is still feeling heavy, somehow you feel a little bit more able to carry it. That feeling isn't just nice. It's not decorative. It's not poetic. It's biological. So we were designed to live in close relationship with the natural world. And our bodies evolved in direct response to the cycles, the rhythms, the cue of the earth. You know, the sunlight, the darkness, the fresh air, the flowing water, the bird song. These aren't just background details. They're part of the architecture of our nervous system. And yet most of us, without realizing it, have cut ourselves off from the very things that regulate our mood, that soothe our stress, and that bring us back to life. What I see is that most people are scrolling more than they're walking. They're working under fluorescent lights for 8 to 10 hours a day. We sleep indoors. We're often disconnected from sunrise and sunset. I know here where I live in Costa Rica, you know, the sun goes down at 6 o'clock at night. By 9 o'clock, everybody goes to bed because we're working with that sunrise and sunset. And most people are getting up between 5 and 6 in the morning when the sun comes up. So that's one of the beautiful things I love about living here. But what I see is that most people have replaced the wide skies with screens, or replaced birdsong with alerts, or replaced stillness with stimulation. And then we wonder why we're feeling anxious, distracted, disconnected, or even numb. But nature hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there, waiting quietly outside the door. And when we make the smallest effort to return to it, even for a few minutes a day, our bodies remember, our brains remember, and something vital begins to reawaken. So when you immerse yourself in nature, your brain responds almost instantly. So exposure to natural environments, whether that's a forest or a park or a garden, or even a window with a view of trees, triggers a measurable increase in serotonin and dopamine. So these are the neurotransmitters that are responsible for mood regulation, for motivation, and for pleasure. These are the happy hormones. And they're not abstract concepts. They are real chemical shifts that change how you feel, how you think, and how you respond to the world around you. So at the same time, cortisol, which is your body's primary stress hormone, begins to decrease. And this has been confirmed across multiple studies. So I went and had a look, and I found that researchers in Japan who've been studying the practice of forest bathing have found that time spent in natural surroundings lowered cortisol levels, reduced the heart rate, and even supported immune function. I found another study from the University of Michigan that showed that as little as 20 minutes in nature significantly reduced stress hormone and increased feelings of calm. And there's also a direct link between the time in green spaces and reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex. So that's the part of the brain associated with rumination or repetitive negative thinking. In other words, nature doesn't just make you feel better, it helps you think better. And it's not just mental health. So your entire system benefits. Your blood pressure improves, your sleep becomes deeper and more restorative, your digestion regulates, creative thinking increases, emotional reactivity decreases, and all of this can begin with as little as 10 to 15 minutes a day of being outside and paying attention. I've also found studies that have found that if people move from a city environment to a rural environment, their mental wellness increases and their stress and anxiety decreases. And the same the other way around. If you leave a rural environment and you move into a city, your stress and anxiety increase and your mental wellness decreases. So it's big. There's a lot of science that shows us how important being out in nature is. I know from living in the midst of it that there's a kind of intelligence in the natural world that's slower, that's quieter, and that's deeper than what we're used to. Nature doesn't rush. Trees don't push themselves to grow faster. The ocean doesn't apologize for taking up space. So everything moves in rhythm, with time, with seasons, with light, with stillness. And when you spend time in nature, you begin to fall back into that rhythm too. It's subtle, but it's powerful. I remember a woman I once worked with who was juggling 2 jobs. She had 3 kids, and she had a very loud, self-critical voice in her head that never let up. And she came to me completely defeated. She told me that she felt a little bit like she was on a treadmill that never stops, and she wasn't sure who she was anymore. So as I worked with her, we didn't start with big changes. We didn't talk about routines or goals. We started with one thing. Go outside for 10 minutes every morning. No phone, no multitasking. Just walk slowly and notice what's alive. You can imagine with all that going on, she was very resistant at first, and she told me that she didn't have time for it. But she did it anyway, and after a few days, something started to shift. And she said it was like her body trusted her again, like she felt like she wasn't fighting herself anymore. So her life didn't become magically easier, but she became more stable. She made decisions with a lot more clarity, and her nervous system started to settle. And over time, she began to truly feel like herself again. That's the gift of nature. Doesn't solve your problems, but it reconnects you to the version of you that can handle them, not with force, but with presence. So a lot of people think they need to drive to a national park or plan a hiking trip to get the benefits of nature. But the science doesn't require epic landscapes, even though having grown up in a country with epic landscapes are amazing. But what matters is that you step outside the manufactured and you step into the real, even for a short time. And you can feel that change. Sitting on your balcony with a hot cup of tea or watching the light move across the leaves outside your window. You can feel it walking around your neighborhood with no destination, just awareness. Even in the act of caring for a houseplant, watching it grow, responding to its needs can trigger measurable changes in mood and stress response. So the key is attention, not just being outside, but being present while you're there. Because that's when the hormones begin to shift. That's when your nervous system says, oh, I know this place. I can exhale here. So this is a return to something primal and profoundly human. You are nature. You're not separate from it. And when you step into it, even briefly, you're stepping back into alignment with something that has always held you. You don't have to do it perfectly, but you just have to begin. Open the door, look at the sky, breathe deeply. Let the world remind you of what is real. Because happiness isn't something you chase. It's something you remember by coming home to the most natural part of who you are. I hope this has been helpful. I'd love to see more of you. Subscribe and watch some of these videos where I teach people how to be happier. As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.